Where are we? Where's the music, man?
All right, we are live. It's begun again. And tonight we have a pretty cool guest on. If anybody in the arm wrestling world doesn't know who this guy is, then I don't know what to tell you. Basically, WAF Head Referee, if I'm correct, Leonard Harkless.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Leonard.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, not a problem. Josh actually had the idea of having you on. I didn't really even think of it just because, like, Josh has been basically the booker, and I've been like the tech guy. I run the website. I run the, this whole Skype thing. And then Josh is basically just the guy who goes out and gets everybody. So you could thank Josh.
Harasses people.
Yeah, everybody can just thank Josh for all the guests, because I've been pretty terrible at that so far. But thanks for coming on, Leonard. We appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah.
So we were just chatting a little bit before you came on, Leonard, and we were both remarking on the fact that we don't know that much about like your history, like what kind of arm wrestler were you? How long did you pull? How did you become a ref? And how did you end up becoming the biggest ref in the world, I guess?
Well, what the deal is I knew somebody was going to come over at this time when I got in the middle of this. But I started arm wrestling in 1978, and I was 17 years old, and I got into sport because I was a wrestler, and I liked that physical one-on-one competition. I win or lose on my own efforts. Nobody to blame, nobody to take credit. I got started that way, and when didn't really do that well in the beginning. I won my first state championship in '81, and from there I started going to Petaluma, the World Wrist Wrestling. So I traveled a little bit, expanding my area, and very quickly I was reffing in our local events for our local promoter, and that's how I got started in reffing. By 1985, I didn't really like how things were happening, and me and a couple of the other top guys in our area, we decided to start our own association along with Denise Waddles. And we started the United States Wrist Wrestling in 1985. And since 1985, we've done about 900 events. Mm-hmm. When you do the math, that's almost on average 30 tournaments a year for 30 years. Yeah. When you look at the body of work that we've done, I chuckle sometimes because I see other promoters and other people doing things that we didn't work and went on to something else. I mean, like reinventing the wheel with rules and all the rest of that stuff. I started reffing in internationally and really in '92 when I went to Moscow. And I started reffing in Moscow in '92. And at the time, the Moscow Gold Bear was the largest international event in the world. It was bigger than Worlds. And I reffed there through '96. In '96, I decided I was going to arm wrestle there. And I lost a bunch of weight and pulled in the 154-pound class. I dropped 80 pounds to make that class.
Wow.
To give you a reference, like they didn't limit your country to how many you could bring. So like there was 9 Americans that showed up there in the 154 class, and yeah, there was 9. We had like 40 some guys in our weight class. I mean, it was big, and I got 5th. All the other Americans dropped below me, so I placed better than the rest of them. But it was quite an experience. And I missed '97, reffed again in '98, and that was the last year the U.S. went to the Gold Bear. In '98, I went to a WF Worlds in Canada, and there was a split in the WAFs at the time, and the U.S. a different U.S. team got to represent the U.S. and Canada, and the AAA was part of the other WAF.
Right.
And I was at that event. They made me the second in charge of the referees at WF at that year, '98, and I stayed in that position. I continued pulling. I pulled at Worlds. And in 2000 in Finland, I got second in the world in the Masters 220. 2001, I got fifth. Didn't do quite as well. Sometimes, as you guys very well know, it's who you draw when you draw them.
Sure.
And that was a bad year for me. And then in 2002, they made me the head ref. There was a controversy with David Sheed and the board of directors and the rules. Basically, he inserted the head referee as part of the executive committee, and then put that in the rules and handed it out to all the countries. Mm-hmm. And when called on it, instead of just saying, I made a mistake, I was wrong, he tried to bluff it through and it didn't work. And basically he resigned at that Worlds. Wow. And at that Worlds, the executive board made me the head referee. And I've been the head referee for WF since that point. Now it's an elected position. So in 2004, I stood for election and got elected in 2004, 2008, 2012, and there's an election again this year. So we're down to two positions in the World Arm Wrestling Federation that's elected: the president and the head referee. We're the only two elected officials now. The general secretary is appointed by the president, so that there used to be three of us. Mm-hmm. So anyway, when I became the head ref in 2002, my polling days was over. I decided it wasn't fair to be the head ref and arm wrestle at Worlds, and so I stepped back from that. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't pulled at Worlds since then.
Was that a difficult decision for you to make, or?
Well, it was, but it's like you can't ref and arm wrestle on the same day. Sure. And so if I pulled for, let's say, 2 days out of a 4-day event, that meant that 2 days I wasn't the head ref. Mm-hmm. And it's like either I wanted to be the head ref or I wanted to arm wrestle. Now everybody else in my reffing crew, I'm okay with them arm wrestling because they're not in charge. And almost all of my refs actually arm wrestle at Worlds. Very few of them don't. And so some days they're pulling and some days they're reffing, but for the head ref to pull it, I just don't think it's right. I mean, I could if I wanted. And then I run into some physical difficulties with my cancer, and so I really can't arm wrestle now, or I'm really not supposed to.
I've seen you after pulling before.
Yeah. And I still play around the table, but as you very well know, there's a whole difference between playing around on the table and actually live goes and sure. really doing a tournament.
Of course.
In 2004 is when I found out my cancer. My T5 vertebrae got broke, and that's how I found out. Arm wrestling actually, a lot of people don't really know this, but it actually saved me. It was not, like I said, I stopped arm wrestling, and so when 2004 come around, we had a little local event in town. I have all kinds of referees that we've trained, and so I didn't ref. And we're just there, and there was this new kid coming in from Helena, Montana. His name was Brian Johnson.
Sure.
And he was just new in the sport, and just on a whim, I decided to enter the tournament. Just what the heck, And he just kicked my butt. I mean, I'll be honest, it pissed me off. Because he's this young kid, and I've been doing this for a long time, and it just really made me upset.
Sure.
And so that was in, I think it was in May of that year, and then July we have a state games. I knew he was coming to the state games, so I developed a strategy what I was going to do to beat him, and actually spent a little bit of time training a little bit, and so the July event come around, and because I knew what to expect now, and I tied him up. I got him over within about a quarter inch of the pad, and I'm hitting. I just can't quite pin him. And he finally wore me down and beat me. And when I got done, I had this pain in my back. And I don't know about you guys, but I've separated my ribs before. I've done other things. You know, people think of arm wrestling as just their arms, and it really isn't. It's your whole damn body.
Oh yeah.
And so I kind of chalked up that, but man, I just didn't have no power left, and I lost every match that day. I've never had a tournament where I've lost every match.
I have.
And so like, you know, I just and over the next week or so it got worse, and I went to the hospital, had an x-ray. They said I just strained some muscles, maybe whatever. They gave me muscle relaxants, Toradol, and another week goes by and it's worse. And so I go in and have an a CAT scan, and that's when they found I actually broke my T5 vertebrae in that just And oh, by the way, I broke it because I had a tumor there. And so, like, if I hadn't just on a whim decided to arm wrestle, how long would it have been before that tumor got big enough to cause problems? And what kind of problems would it have done when it did actually break? Because my bone cancer, it actually, that tumor just hollows out the bone.
Right.
It just eats it out. And so that's how I found out I had cancer, was because of arm wrestling. I found out a lot early, and so I was very fortunate with that. And my neck thing came about a couple of years later when the cancer came back, and I was taking blood tests, but at some point my blood test quit working, and I was getting false negatives where it said you're clean and you're not. Oh. And it took out my C2 vertebrae, and I broke it actually. And again, had an X-ray. X-rays haven't done so good for me because I had an X-ray. They said I just strained some muscles. Sent me home again on Toradol and Flexerol, and I actually flew out the next day to California to ref my nationals in a neck brace. And I ref my nationals that whole weekend in a neck brace, not knowing I had a broken C2 vertebrae. And I got back and had a MRI, and that's when they found that I had a tumor. Within 12 hours, I was in surgery, and they put a rod on one side of my neck and under my skull and back down the other side. They fused me all the way down through my fifth vertebrae, C5. I only have two vertebrae working, so that's why it looks like my neck is stiff. Well, because it is. It just doesn't. And then after that all healed, that's when they did the radiation and took out the tumor and the rest of it.
Wow.
So, I mean, I have no pain. It doesn't hurt. It's just, I just don't have a lot of movement in it.
Right.
So anyway, 4 months ago, I went back into remission again, and because it comes and it goes.
Right.
And I was able to lose a little bit of weight. The steroids they gave me just blew me up. In June last year, I was 274 pounds. I'm back down to 2.25. So I lost 50 pounds basically, and I'm feeling good and healthy, and my job situation has changed a little bit. I'm no longer running a grocery store. I'm back to my screen printing days. I opened up a screen printing shop here, and so that makes it nice for arm wrestling because my schedule's a little looser now. I can work extra if I want to, and when I have the grocery stores, they're open 9 to 7. Either you're there or you're not there. I can't come in early and get it done, and I can't stay late and get my work done.
Right.
Yeah.
I was really tied to the stores opening and closing it. So and you'll notice that our arm wrestling schedule has opened up a little bit. We're doing more events, expanding, and that's part of the, Denise is back in Montana and I'm here in Portland, and so we fly to events and we meet at the event itself. But it makes it difficult, with me being out of the rotation a lot. So we'll be doing more events now.
Great. It's always good news.
Yeah, that's great to hear, man. That's a cool story, man. I had no idea about any of that stuff. It's you've gone through a lot, and you're still out there kicking butt, man. That's pretty impressive.
I've had cancer for 12 years, and like I said, I'm in remission. I'm healthy, and I'm pretty fortunate.
Leonard, why do you think the international community has been so supportive of you? Re-electing you as head ref over and over again. I mean, we know you. I feel like we know you pretty well here because pretty much everybody's been to your events. But I mean, obviously, you're not running events routinely overseas. So what is it do you think gives you the longevity?
We also, some of it has to do with early on, I developed a rapport with the other master referees in the other countries. I changed when I became the head referee in 2002. I changed some things around. We had a referee panel of master referees, and what I did is I changed a little bit to where you know I appoint people to that panel, but I can't take them off the panel. You can only be removed from that panel by a vote of the other members. And so what I did is I set up to where I'm not a dictator to my other referees. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They have some autonomy, and I've always taken the attitude that I don't know everything. If you got a better technique or you got a way of doing something, I want to learn about it. I want to know about it. We're all learning new moves and techniques.
Sure.
And as part of the networking of the master referees. And so I have a good rapport with the other referees. And as much as anything else, I try to ref matches at the Worlds. I try not to be just an administrator where I stand back. And I mean, you think about it, there's 8 tables going on at once with at least 3 referees assigned to every table. So when I'm there at the Worlds, I got 24 to 32 referees all under my control at that event. And I have to actually make a concerted effort to actually get on the tables myself and to ref. And
do you have to walk around with a? Do you have to walk around with an interpreter or what? I mean,
they speak enough. Most of them speak pretty decent English.
Yeah.
And most of them speak enough for me to get. Even the ones that don't speak really good English, they speak enough for me to understand them. And you know that's the deal. And like the rules are in English, and so a lot of referees aren't really able to be a senior or master level referee, not because they're not good refs, but because they don't have a good enough command of the English language.
Sure. And
so we lose a lot of referees because of that. You have to, it isn't enough to just know the 20 words that the arm wrestlers are required to know. You have to actually blurt out the right word under pressure quickly. When you see something, you can't let seconds go by while you're fishing in your head for the word or the phrase that you're trying to do.
Sure.
And so you have to be able to just do it. And so we do lose some of the foreign referees to that fact. I mean, they're perfectly good referees in their country, but if you don't have a good enough command of the English language to just come out with the commands and the stoppages and the things you have to do, you just can't do it. And one of the things I've done, I started it 6 years ago. You don't referee at Worlds unless you're at least a senior level. Now when I'm using these terms, master's obviously the highest level, and then senior means that you can start matches, and junior level means you can only downside ref.
Okay.
And I've also set up to where juniors can only referee with masters. So if a junior's going to be on a table, they can only referee with a master. Seniors can referee with masters, and seniors can referee with other seniors, but never with juniors. And about 6 years ago, I had enough. I've trained enough, and we've got ourselves in a spot where I haven't had to use junior referees at the World Championships for 6 years now.
Cool.
I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, you travel all the way across the country. The last thing you want to do is to be able to lose a match because of an inexperienced referee that just did something wrong.
Sure.
Not on purpose or not because he wanted to. And frankly, it's not really fair for that junior referee to put under that kind of pressure at Worlds with that caliber an arm wrestler there. It's not fair for him either. I mean,
Sure.
He needs to get that training back at home in his own country and come to us. And they do come out to us and they test, and every year about 20 to 30 referees don't make senior in our testing.
That many, huh? Wow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll test 60 to 70 people sometimes, and we're only ending up with 30 to 35 refs that actually make the senior master level.
How do you test them?
Well, there's a process. They're given a written test for the rules, and really the written test is as much to find out for them and us how well they know the rules. And then we do a practical test. Now the practical test is where we'll actually put them refereeing on a table with two master referees playing as arm wrestlers. And I've developed scenarios. So let's say, John, that you want to test for a senior level ref at the World Championships. So you show up there and you do the test, you do the written test, and then you come to the practical. And you're going to have two master referees there, and they're going to give, I have a pre-set up written scenarios that they're going to decide. They're going to walk up there, and we're going to, the one guy's going to elbow foul after he gets into his match. Did you catch it or didn't you? And everybody that's testing for senior gets the same scenario. So it's a true test. It's not just like somebody's being a little harder on you than somebody else. And did you catch it? And it's a pretty rigorous, those master referees know exactly what to do to how to mess with you. They're talking to you, they're yelling at each other, they're doing everything we've all seen in the tournaments, right?
Right.
But they're trying to simulate a intense matchup and to see whether you can control the matchup, see whether you can control your emotions. And some of the things I've been putting out is for the referees not to be emotionally don't get emotionally brought into a match. Doesn't matter to us who wins or loses. You can yell and scream all you want, but the match is the match. But anyway, that's the testing, and then let's say you make senior level, all right? So now we'll talk about what days that you want to ref and so on and so forth, because you're probably pulling. If you make master referee, we never give any masters off the testing, off the practical testing. You then go out onto the floors of the event. And after you've ref, then we meet together, me and the other master referees, and we meet together and evaluate how you did in actual live matches during the tournament.
Okay.
Sometimes it's an iffy thing. Sometimes you're really kind of a master at the end of the testing, but it didn't really shake out during the tournament. And unfortunately, somebody may test as a master, but they don't finish as a master out at the tournament. And so they got to come back another year, and we've had guys take them 2-3 years to make their masters, even though they're almost right there. They're really. I haven't found a master referee that hasn't been reffing for at least 4 or 5 years. I mean, it takes a long time to get, even if you're good.
Sure.
It's about number of tournaments you're doing, the quality of the tournaments. You could do 30 local bar tournaments, and you're not going to be the same referee as doing 10 pro events every year.
For sure.
So the quality of the event and the size of the event all plays into it.
You were talking about before you were talking about following rules and all that. What does it take? Like, for example, I know a long time before I started pulling, honestly, the elbow, without gaining position wasn't a foul for a long time. Now it's no matter what, elbow comes up, it's a foul. Doesn't matter if you gain position or not. With a change like that, what does that entail? Like, is it a vote between the referees? Is it a vote between, heads of organizations? How does that exactly play out? All
right. So I'll talk about rule changes in a sec, but I want to let you know what to deal with that elbow up and down thing.
Sure.
See, when we started our association in 1985, we had our own little idea of what we thought would be best for the rules,
sure.
Right? And so we came up with our own set of rules. And one of the things was that elbow up, down, no position gain, no hand change, no call. And that was the USAA thing that we did, and Bill Collins did it. Pretty much every out west was doing that. Elbow up, down, no position gain, no call, no hand change, no call. And you better be good at reffing to catch that, because you are making an instant decision on what happened. Did he gain position? Didn't he gain position? Was there a hand change while it all happened? I mean, you had better be really good at it. And we were. I mean, we worked at it. We were good at it. The problem is that WAF wasn't doing it.
Right.
And the rest of the world wasn't doing it. AAA wasn't doing it. We were the only ones doing that. And so we went to the Worlds in it was in Canada, and I can't remember if it's 2002. I'm trying to remember exactly what year it was, but it was in the 2000s, and Alan Fisher was really in his prime. I mean, he really was the best 165-pound arm wrestler in the world. And so we go up there to Canada, and Alan went 2-2, placed like 8th or 10th, or it wasn't even close. And basically he went 2-2 because he couldn't keep his elbow down. He didn't know how to pull that. And so you know, on our drive back home down to Montana, Denise and I were talking about it. My other refs was with me in the car, Keith Michelle and Bob Koschel, and it's like, you know, we're not helping our arm wrestlers with these rules.
Right.
They're not learning how to keep their elbow on the pad. They're not learning the techniques that they need to do to keep their elbow down on that pad. And so we actually changed our rules at the first of the year because of Alan Fisher and how poorly he did. Not because he wasn't the best, he didn't know how to keep his elbow down.
Yeah, it's training.
And so we changed our rules to WAF because of that. And you know, it's easy to go the other way. It's easy to not worry about your elbow coming up or down like WAL does. But it's really difficult to learn the techniques of keeping your elbow down. And so that's why we've gone that way. Now, so that's part of what I was talking about, laughing about you know, some of these other organizations reinventing the wheel.
Sure.
And we've done all that. And frankly, they're not helping their arm wrestlers.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing a video like in the early 2000s of an event of yours where you actually had running fouls. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it was because of that world that I switched it. And we had an event this last weekend in Orlando, and one of the guys just, you know, he just flipped out about us calling his elbow fouls because he'd been doing all this WAL stuff, and he hadn't quite figured out that's, you know, I mean, we talked about the rules, we went over it at the beginning of the tournament, but I mean, if you can't keep your elbow down, you're just gonna get fouled out. I mean,
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And now, if you want to talk about how to change it at Worlds, you know, if you want to get rules changed at the world level, it's at least a 2-year process. You need to be there and lobby the countries ahead of time. The next year, you introduce it in Congress, and you get your vote, and then it's effective for the following year.
Okay.
And I've done it for a couple of things, but like probably, and a lot of people don't even realize this, but probably the most dramatic thing I did was getting referee pay at Worlds. Before 2002, when you were a master referee or any referee, you went to Worlds and reffed. Do you know how much how much money you got for that?
I really hope
Zero.
it's not zero. Oh.
How much did you get for your airline tickets? Zero. All you got was a shared room with another referee at Worlds. That's all you got. And the level of competition was horrible. And in 2000, I went around, I lobbied the countries, and I said, okay, if I could get you better referees, would you be willing to pay for it? Absolutely. Because remember, well, I shouldn't say remember, you guys don't know it, but at that time, your entry fee at Worlds was one $20 fee.
Okay.
Didn't matter how many arms you pulled. You could pull left and right masters, you could pull left and right open, and what was your entry fee? $20 total. And so what my concept was that you'd pay $20 for every entry, and that the extra money brought in would go toward the referee fund. So then in 2001, I got it voted in to be effective in 2002.
Okay.
So in 2002 was the first time any referee got travel expenses, and that's all it was for. Was for travel expenses, and our level of referees have just escalated from that point on.
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, you're missing time off from work and this, that, and the other, and whatnot. At least, and it's not guaranteeing all your travel money. Depends on where you're coming from, where Worlds is. You know what I mean? When the Worlds is in the U.S., the travel money, it's only what you actually spend in travel.
Sure.
And like last year when we did it in Malaysia, you know, most everybody spent, you know, close to $1,000 in airline. Everybody did.
Right.
So I mean, we spent, the WAF collected for the referee fund about $13,000 to spend on our referees. But you know, we're not asking for everything, but it is a help, and
Absolutely.
Well, and it's a real job too. There's no doubt about it. You have a lot of people's experiences resting on the quality of that refereeing, so it should be paid.
Well, and I set it up on a point system. So you got a certain amount of points based on what level referee you are and how many days you're working. And so the more days you worked and the better referee you are, the more money you got. And that's basically the way it's set up.
It's a good system.
It gives a good incentive to keep improving as a referee too.
Absolutely.
Well, and like my master referees, you only keep that status as long as you keep coming. You can miss 1 year because nobody likes to test, right? So the masters are the only ones that don't have to test, right?
Right.
But you can miss 1 year, but if you miss 2 years as a master, then I make you retest. Because you know what? I haven't seen you for 3 years, have I? I don't really know you really are still a master. And so that's their incentive to keep coming also. You can miss a year, like Keith Michelle missed Kazakhstan. He decided he didn't want to go to Kazakhstan. And I probably would have done the same thing. Well, you know, you think about it, we're Americans, right? And so like first off, the country ends in the word "stan." So like Pakistan and Afghanistan, and okay, this is Kazakhstan, and it's a Muslim country, and oh, by the way, the Worlds was in December that year, and it's a winter country. So let's see here. True. It's going to be cold, snowy, and I'm going to a Muslim country as an American, and it's over by Pakistan. Wow. And when I got there, it was the best Worlds I've ever been at. I mean, the people were friendly, the food was great, the organization was top notch. I mean, it really was one of the best Worlds I've ever been in. I mean, it was awesome. So Keith really missed out on a good thing.
Good job, Keith. Good job.
And oh, by the way, there's 4 women for every man there, and they're all about 90 to 120 pounds. So like, it was just horrible. But we really did have a good time there. So you never really know. I mean, you look at that. Brazil the next year, there was more beautiful women in Kazakhstan than there was in Brazil. So sorry, Brazil, but it is what it is. So you know, maybe because my expectations were a little higher for Brazil. I don't know.
There you go, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's kind of the deal. It's not easy to change thing at Worlds. Like I got the Ferrer strap actually voted Worlds, and I set it up for the year before, and then last year I got voted in, and actually got voted in for that year. So usually they make you wait another year. But I did get it voted through, and the year before when we tested it out, I believed in it, but I wasn't really really sold, but I believed in it. And they let me test it out on the 2 Masters days, and then the Open. Then on the Open day, they wanted me to go back to the old rack, and I had 2 ladies in the ladies Open senior level. So this is the Open girls, the pros. I believe it was
in the world, right? Senior class is called.
Well, their Opens are called senior.
Right.
And these are 2 of the top ladies in the left hand Open, and the lady on the A side, her first match was the buckle on her wrist, and boom, they hit, and she started losing her wrist, lost her wrist, eventually lost the match. So when they come back to them again, they have to switch sides.
Okay.
So now the other girl's got the buckle on her wrist. Boom, the hit, and the girl with the buckle. Now the other girl, she loses her wrist, and boom, she loses. So it's an easy 1 + 1 = 2. Whoever had that buckle was going to lose that match. They were that closely matched up,
right? And
whoever got the buckle lost their wrist. They did exactly the same moves. They didn't change a thing. There wasn't like one changed their move or anything. It was the exact same scenario as both setups. And that's when it really, really struck me, you know what, I got to really push this because it really does make a difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you're very close. Especially when you're
Yeah,
very
and
close.
I'm right there with both those matches. I got to see them. Sometimes at Worlds, I don't get a ref as much during the day as I like to. And so I do kind of put myself up there in every final match. And I just rotate down and up, and I let my other master referees come in, because only masters ref in the finals. And I let them come in, and so there's a rotation, but I'm staying up there every match. So I got to see both those matches firsthand, and it really does make a difference.
Did you happen to see the little article we were sending around about the buzzers or a light to start matches instead of ready go?
Well, I didn't see it, though there's been buzzers and lights put on tables in the past, and they've never worked well. Basically, things get shook around and banged around enough it's hard to rely on that kind of stuff. But I didn't see the video.
So, do you think it'd been in the past there was like a technological issue? Do you think were there other issues besides the failing equipment?
It's pretty much technological. It's hard to get that stuff down consistently over the amount of matches and the abuse the tables take. And basically, what you're talking about is the variances and the cadence of the referees, and so on and so forth. And you know, when I arm wrestled, I have very slow reflexes, and it took me a little bit to figure it out that I need to anticipate goes, that I need to not wait to hear it. If I waited to hear it, I was way too late. My class was 176 when I pulled. It's hard to believe that, but it was. 76 was my class, and I never want to go up 176. And then I started pulling 198s just to get competition, and I would lose the go, but not that much. And then I started pulling the heavies to gain more competition. And because that's what we did in Montana. If you won enough in 176, you were a state pro in 76, amateur in 98. And then once you won enough in 98, then you were heavyweight. We didn't have a 242 or 220 then. Sure. And so what it did is it kept guys from dominating weight classes. Nobody wanted to pull them, and it made them better arm wrestlers. And when I finally got to heavyweights, I could tie the goes with them. And then when I go to the pros, I had problems, and so I quickly figured out I need to anticipate the goes. And so I took a little notebook with me at tournaments, and fortunately I wasn't the 154 class, so I had a little bit of leeway into watching the refs, and I'd write down their cadence, description of the ref or what their name was, and I'd write down their cadences. So I knew whether they did ready go or whether they did ready go, or stretched out the Y and ready, and so on and so forth. And so when I went up there, I knew what their cadences was. And then I was able to anticipate it. And the guys that deliberately altered their cadences, because there is refs that will do that, the guys that deliberately altered their cadence, I lip read. And your lips will move a split second before the sound comes out. And that's the ultimate decent way of getting a start. If I already got a foul on the books, I can't afford to guess now, and so then I lip read. So everything you're talking about, it's all fixable by the arm wrestler being smarter. Now, some people have said, "Well, Leonard, your cadence never changes, and that everybody knows exactly what your cadence is." And my answer to that is absolutely. I am doing that on purpose. I am purposely keeping the same cadence 99.99% of the time. Because if you miss a go, John, it ain't because I surprised you with my start.
Right.
Nobody can say that they lost their goes or didn't do this or didn't do that because they had no idea what kind of start I'm going to give them. I'm going to give them the same start every time. If you miss the go, that's on you. And so that's why I deliberately keep the same ready go every time, all the time. If you false start, bummer. That's just the way it is.
Mhm.
I've never done that ever my whole life.
Never.
Every ref's a liar.
But that is my feeling on that. I know it's difficult. It drives me crazy sometimes that referees aren't following it the way that I think they should follow it. The rules do not say READYGO. It says ready ... go, or just a space, but they are 2 words,
Right?
and you should pronounce them as 2 words. Now, do I understand why they're doing it? They're doing it for 2 reasons. Number one, sometimes they've gotten into the habit. It's very difficult to change a start sequence habit that you've gotten into. And number 2, they'll do it because they're nervous. They're afraid of people not sitting there. They're afraid about the arm wrestlers not waiting for them to give the go, and they're trying to just blurt it out and get it started.
Right.
And so those are the 2 reasons that. And I can understand the start sequence. It's difficult to change once you have a habit. I did a Bill Collins tournament for his U.S. Open, and he does a don't move go. Man, I had a hard time with that. Half the time I said ready go, and half the time I said don't move go. It's a habit. It's just, man. If we ever switch to that, it's going to take me a while to get used to.
So
my other problem with don't move go is don't move is a command that we use in the setups. And I just don't like the idea of using a command in the setups as part of the start sequence. And that's my biggest objection to do.
Leonard, do you think that we will see the Worlds back in the United States anytime in the next few years?
Unless the presidency of WAF changes, no. Currently, the administration at WAF insists on TV broadcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't afford it. It won't be in Canada, it won't be in the US. As long as that is a prerequisite to hosting a Worlds, it ain't gonna happen. And the countries want to come to the US. These other countries want to come to the US. They're not coming to the US because they don't want to. It's because the administration wants there to be TV for the Worlds. And in Europe, they can do Eurosports really relatively cheaply and put it on TV in Europe.
Yeah, Neil's been doing it for a long time and doing it very well. Neil.
Yeah, and we can't do it. We just can't do that here. So the answer is nope.
Yeah, because I mean, back in 2010, we had it in Mesquite, I believe it was 2010, and it was a fantastic tournament.
Absolutely.
Countries came and they represented it, and there was it wasn't like it was a smaller world than any other world. It was fantastic. So it's pretty clear that if you have it here, people will come. So it's a shame.
Well, and there's a lot to holding a world that most people don't realize.
Sure.
If you can't get them in the country, it doesn't do you any good.
Right.
The visas and the permission to enter the country is a massive part of that. And Denise and I and Bill Collins were all part of the committee for the U.S. And that was Denise Waddle's job was writing of the visas and following up with it. She spent months and months of work. It's just amazing. I know she put in about 30 hours a week for months on nothing but visas, because she'd write a visa and she'd send it in, and then it get denied. So then she's got to contact the consulate in Tribeca or wherever the heck it is, and send them and make phone calls and send out other letters, and it's just amazing that the entries that we got was a direct result of her work that she put in for that. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of work that's involved with that. And she knew to do that because we hosted the Worlds in 2002.
Maybe we should just do it in Bermuda. How about that? I said maybe we should just have it in Bermuda.
Exactly.
That's not too far away.
Like when you do these Worlds in Europe, they don't have the same visa requirements. I mean,
Right.
they're all But when you do it in the U.S., man, she had countries send her pictures of these guys arm wrestling, so she could forward them on. So like the consulates would be confident that this isn't just somebody trying to come to the U.S. and not go back.
Sure.
This really was and is an arm wrestler, and that they're really wanting to compete at the World Championships.
Yeah, I remember talking to Simon a few years ago, just like on almost just basically scratching the surface of all the work that it takes, and I was pretty blown away.
It's just see my portion of the committee was the transportation, because it was in Mesquite, and so everybody flew into Vegas, and then we had to bus them.
Right.
And I had to coordinate all those teams and all those buses, and they're coming over when they arrived at the airport, and getting them over to Mesquite, getting them back to Mesquite. Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous. Hosting a Worlds is a lot of work. It takes a lot of people to be able to do it. But neither here nor there. For us to have it in the U.S., they have to come off of their rock solid position of you have to have TV. I mean, we had the bid, and we lost it.
I wonder if there's a way around that now with all the web broadcasts people are doing, like this one right here. Does it have to be like on broadcast television, or could it be like something? Yes. It has to be like actually on. We have to be able to turn our TVs and catch it on cable or what have you.
Well, they want local. They want TV in the U.S. and they want you to send the signal over to Europe. You have to be able to send it. Your production costs are $125,000. That's production costs. Because remember, this is a 4-day event. This isn't a production cost for a 1-day event.
Sure. You
have production people and their crews and lights and all that for 4 days. And your production cost is pretty significant, not to mention the cost of the airtime.
Yeah, right. And like people, I don't think most people understand like how much goes into production as it is. Like you have to pay unions and the amount of people on a crew. It's not just a guy with a camera and a guy telling the guy with the camera where to point it. It's pretty big, It's a big crew.
Absolutely. There's a whole crew involved. There's lights, there's sound, there's a whole crew involved.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, like I said, if the administration changes and they come off of it, then they come off of it. And it's election year, so we'll see what happens with it. But it is what it is. That's what they want, and as long as that's what they want, they're gonna come to the U.S.
All right, switching gears a little bit, Leonard. What advice would you give somebody who maybe would just like to focus on becoming a ref, or even like someone who's been pulling for a long time who wants to be a ref? What advice would you give them to be able to get to the master level and to make it somewhat of a career or side career anyway for them?
It's about how many events you can ref. The old Petaluma days where they had the World Wrist Wrestling, those poor guys, they ref once a year. Mm-hmm. They were horrible. They were horrible.
Sure.
And it isn't their fault. You cannot be good at officiating, doing any sport once a year. It's about repetition. And that's where like the USAA, we had such an advantage over most associations because of numbers. We're just doing so many events that you're reffing a lot of numbers. So it's about doing a lot of events. If you're starting out with it, try to do events with experienced referees, so you're learning from them. You're learning the small techniques. Read some of the stuff that I've been putting out. This last year and a half, 2 years, I've kind of refocus my energy on training referees rather than just testing referees. In the past, it was all about testing. You made it, you didn't, and there really wasn't that much effort put in training. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I'm really focusing this last year and a half, 2 years on is training referees. I put out a 2 sheets now on referee techniques, part 1, part 2, and really it goes over how to be a good referee. I mean, it isn't that difficult shouldn't be that difficult
Right.
to read the rules and understand what the rules are. But administrating them and being a good referee is a whole other story. I reffed AAU wrestling, folk style, freestyle, Greco. I reffed football. I reffed flag football. High school football and flag football. I did all that stuff. And every one of those sports all has handbooks talking about not just the rules, but how to administer the rules, how to be a referee, how to put yourself in a position. You watch videos and probably 75, 80% of all the missed calls is because they're not in a position to make the call. They're in a bad position. They've let the touchpad get in their way. They let their arm wrestler's arm get in their way of seeing the calls. They're standing up. Oh my God, that drives me crazy. They're standing up. Get your butt down into that corner. Get your eye level to the pad, and you know what? You can see a call there.
Right.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, they're standing up. You have such a bad angle down to see things like that.
Sure.
You got to get yourself over in that corner. The downside refs, it drives me crazy to see the downside ref in the middle of the table giving these left and right signals. That should be the head ref's job. He has a good view down the middle of that table. He doesn't need that downside down there having him move the damn hands a half inch left or right and then giving you a thumbs up. He likes that. You know what I mean? It's like really, you made a move. You stopped everything and you made him move those hands a half inch, and now you're happy.
So
and you're out of position. Get yourself into the corner so you can see the elbows. So that downside should be giving you a thumbs up or a flat line for the wrist, and that's it.
Right.
The head ref's job is the rest of it.
We got a couple questions for you from people watching online here. One of them is asking about advice to what position is best to prevent broken arms. He said he's had 2 arms break during matches he's reffed, and he's something that he would like to prevent. So that's one question. And then there's another person here asking about where they can get the information you're talking about, those 2 ref papers you put out.
Okay, so the ref papers, I'm on Facebook. Just send me a Facebook request with your email address, and I'll fire them off to you. The hurt arm positions, and I'm kind of superstitious. I don't even like saying broken arm, but
thank you.
It's first off, I need to make it clear there's hurt arms from 3 different reasons. In my, as I like to quip, never to be humble opinion. The first is where they've been pre-injured. Sure. They have a stress fracture from practices or some other sport. They got hit, their arms are a little sore, they come in the arm wrestle anyway. Now, I can appreciate that. Half of my career arm wrestling, I was sore in almost every tournament I went to.
Sure.
So it's hard to know whether the soreness is muscle soreness or something else. But sometimes they are pre-stressed. They've done absolutely nothing wrong. They're in perfect position, and as soon as any kind of pressure is put on it, their arm goes. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is that there's some arm wrestlers, and I had one this last weekend, his arm just wasn't going to take the stress. It didn't matter what we did. It didn't matter what he did. He was in perfect position. There was no reason other than his arm just wasn't going to take that stress. And then you have the final one, which is where we as refs can have some help, and it's recognizing their setup a little bit. Like if they set up with their elbow way up in the front of the pad and they're a novice sort of guy, the farther your elbow gets away from your body, the more stress is put on your arm left and right. And so you try to encourage them to keep their elbows into their body and understand that they're going to keep their elbow up there. It doesn't take much of a turn to magnify the stress on that arm. And so you kind of keep an eye on especially these new people that's coming in. Really, if it's going to happen, 99% of the time it's in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
That's the crucial time. If they're relatively new, keeping an eye on where that elbow is actually a key that most people haven't thought of. If it comes out forward, then it magnifies the stress sideways on their arm.
Sure.
So you keep a little closer eye on those guys. If it looks like they're starting to get in a position, you feel nervous about it, stop the match. Don't be afraid to actually stop it. Usually if you're feeling nervous, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
The ladies are an issue, and it's not sexist to say the truth, but they have an 8-time more chance of getting a hurt arm than men.
Really?
And you go 8 times. Oh, that seems kind of high, doesn't it? Okay, well, you look at the history of broken arms. Almost half of them all are women. Okay.
Okay.
So you look at 100. You look at 100 entry tournament. How many entries are women?
Yeah.
10,
right.
12. So if they're getting hurt at almost the same rate as men, and there's 8 to 10 times more men arm wrestling than women, it's not hard to do that math.
Yeah.
And their bones aren't as thick, they're a little thinner, and they hate to lose.
That is true.
Serious. It's hard to get women to do it, but you know what I'm talking about. They just hate to lose.
Yep.
Guys will get in a certain spot and they go, all right, I'll come back, or it is what it is. Man, very few women give up. I mean, they just fight to the bitter end.
Yep.
And it makes me nervous as a ref when I am 100 times more nervous. My ladies up there, and I'm a lot more protective because I recognize those are the dynamics, but it is what it is. And then the other thing is like there's more potential damage to a competitor after he's hurt than the broken arm itself. How it's dealt with afterwards is 100 times more important than anything else. Like you get that arm put into their body, you get them off of the table. If you're on a stage, try to get them off of the stage as quickly as you can, right away before they've gone into any kind of shock. Get them off of the stage and sit them on a chair, and then don't let anybody put ice on the arm. Man, it's like everybody and their uncle all wants to bring ice to you to put on their arm.
Right.
Now, think about this. What does the ice do to muscles? It shrinks and contracts them.
Right.
So the last thing we want to do is to shrink and contract that muscle on that bone that's sharp. And when you put the ice on the arm, you're putting pressure on it.
Sure.
Okay. And so I've looked at X-rays. I know exactly what it looks like in there. You don't want to move anything around. So you don't want the muscle shrinking. You don't want to put pressure on it. And then when the paramedics come, look, we know our sport and we know what injury it is, but spiral fractures are not, God, I hate even talking about this stuff, but spiral fractures are not a normal thing in a paramedic's life.
Sure.
They see it in skiing, rodeo, and child abuse. That's the only thing they see. Somebody twists a kid's arm or something. They very seldom see spiral fractures. And so you can't tell them what to do because they get all snarky about that.
Right.
And so I've developed this strategy to try to help the situation out. Paramedics in the past has done this, which is just swathe the arm to their body and nothing else.
Right.
Just swathe the hand to the body and nothing else. And for the most part, you get them to cooperate with you when you're using that terminology. You tell them what to do, and you're dead in the water. It's a spiral fracture of the upper humerus, and paramedics in the past have done this. I had a paramedic want to put an air cast on a guy one time, and they had a sheriff there, and I was about to be arrested because I knew he was going to hurt that kid.
Yeah.
And just compress all that would have been horrible. And the only thing that got me out of it is I started verbally taking names of people that would testify in court at his lawsuit, because he was going to be sued for damaging this kid. And his partner went, whoa, wait a minute. So hold on, let's just listen to what he's saying here, because he would have hurt that kid. And that was my last resort.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize the nerve damage that can happen with a broken arm after the fact. It can get really bad for people.
Yeah, and it's our job to try to help them out as much as possible, and I do follow-ups. I call, I see how they're doing. I look at X-rays. All those things are things I feel an obligation to do. But you know, we do what we can and try to keep their shoulder squared. Try not to let their hand get behind their shoulder when it gets back behind their shoulder. And the hard thing is that all these guys are seeing pros do everything I just said. Yeah. See those pros doing it, and I try to explain in the rules why that is. But they develop the ability to twist over time. I've looked at X-rays of pros' arms. Their bone is 2 to 3 times thicker than any other normal human being, because over time and stress, it's made that bone get stronger and more flexible. Absolutely. You look at what's the guy over in Vermont?
Bill Sinks.
Yeah, Bill Sinks. Oh my gosh, his arm twists so much there's a crease in it. There's a crease in it. It's like, really?
Mike Shalhoub pulls like that too up here.
He does, and they've both been pulling a long time. If they ever stop arm wrestling for a long period of time, they'll get hurt actually, because you actually lose that ability to twist and you stop pulling for a long period of time.
So I want to bring up John's favorite subject, which I try to do once on every interview just to annoy him, and that's steroids. I'd like to know what your view is on their role in the sport, and whether you think that tested nationals is going to ever become the norm, or whether it's a dead issue and we should stop talking about it, or what do you think?
Well, you know, the problem is that NFL football, NBA basketball, these guys are making millions and millions of dollars, and they're tested all the time. They're tested all the time. And has it brought the steroids out of their sports? No.
Right.
I think it seems like it's like trying to keep water from coming down a waterfall. They succeed for a period of time, and then there's new ways to beat the test and that sort of thing. And I have heard the opposite argument made, is that, you know, the NBA players and such have unlimited resources to figure out that stuff, and they have teams helping them beat tests and such. But like for the average arm wrestler, where they're not really necessarily even hiding it, it's a more blatant kind of use situation. I know Luke Kint, I was talking to him on Facebook, trying to get him to come on the show too, and he posted something on Facebook which turned into quite an entertaining thread. I'm sure you probably saw it.
I did.
So obviously, there's really strong feelings about it, obviously. So,
well, you know, the thing is that, and I understand his position. He's frustrated and whatnot, but you know, just because you become stronger doesn't mean that you're a great arm wrestler. And I will grant you that somebody that's become stronger, that is also smart and has good technique. But for the most part, what happens is guys that get really strong, it is hard not to do it. They tend to leave off the techniques. They tend to leave off the all the other things that make you a good arm wrestler. And even the ones that do that, their emotions are like off the charts. There's a certain super heavyweight left-hand guy that was out of the sport for a while because he couldn't control his emotions. That he pulled muscles in his wrists and other places because the steroids are making you stronger, but they ain't helping your tendons. You know, tendons are a big part of our sport. And the other thing is, there's enough events out there that it's very difficult to time out your cycles. You cycle on, you cycle off, and so you see them do really good at one event per se, and then all of a sudden at another event a month later or 2 months later, they're horrible. Well, why is that? Because you can't stay cycled on all the time. You have to cycle off, and frankly, you lose. And I've done some studies on, or I've read studies on it. When you cycle off, you lose more power than you had when you started. And so like it's a net zero gain. You can't stay. You're stronger while you're on, but you can't stay on. And when you cycle off, you lose everything you gained and then some when you cycled off. It's a vicious circle, and so it's hard to consistently stay up at that level when you're doing that.
That's an interesting point, Leonard, because I was recently viewing. Somebody sent me a page of bodybuilders before and after steroids, and they're all walking around looking like normal human beings 10 years after they retire. I mean, they look like your regular 165-pound guy back to being skinny. They have some loose skin, but other than that, they look like normal folks. And then the pictures of them when they were, on everything, they were 300 pounds of solid muscle. So it's really an incredible transformation when they come off.
Yeah, it comes off just as fast as it came on. And arm wrestling is a sport where you'll see guys, from Russia and some of these other places. You'll see them rocket to the top, and then after 2-3 years, you don't see them again. They're gone, toast, or they get busted at Worlds. I mean, there's testing at Worlds, and they're pretty serious about it. And
yeah, I saw some people got busted.
And they'll lose 2 to 3 years, and on top of that, their 2 to 3 years isn't like what you would think. You can't arm wrestle, period, at a tournament in that time.
Yeah, it's a little different
if you just go to some local bar tournament and they find out you actually arm wrestled somewhere, anywhere, and then do a WAF, they'll extend your probation at Worlds. And for these Europeans, it's a bigger thing than us. Like out here in the U.S., it ain't that big a deal. But a lot of these European countries, they're sponsored by their countries. Their housing is connected to it. Their livelihood is connected to it.
Right.
It's an Olympic sport in their sport ministry's position. And so you can't arm wrestle. You're out of the system. You've lost your livelihood. It's a whole different thing over there.
Yeah.
And like for us, like for me, I gotta be careful because I'm the WF head ref, right? So let's say somebody gets busted for steroids and they show up in my tournament. It almost happened at the Arnold. Some guy wanted to come to the Arnold, and I didn't pay that close attention to exactly who it was. And when I found out he'd been banned from WF, I had to deny him the ability to pull at the Arnold. I can't let a tested athlete pull at my event.
Right.
All right. Well, Leonard, I got one more question before we let you go. And it kind of goes back to just reffing, like in general. I've reffed a few tournaments myself, nothing big, state tournaments, stuff like that. And it's been mostly down reffing, but it's when I'm, basically one of my classes isn't up there, I just help out. But one thing I've noticed is how do you stay sharp all day? Because I swear, if I ref more than I pull, I am more tired at the end of the day than if I competed.
That's true.
So how is it that you what advice would you give a ref or just even people who just are helping out? How do you stay fresh to make those calls the right way, even at the end of the day, like really when it matters the most?
Yeah, because you're right. By the end of the day, you're technically your tiredest, and you need to be at your best at the end of the day.
Sure.
And it's really something that you develop over time. Being able to focus on each match, and some of it has to do with just drawing your focus down to what's important. Half the time, I'm not even looking at who's at the table. We'll get done with the tournament now. They'll ask me who is. I don't even know these people's name half the time, and I should because I'm not really focused on that. It's just on just the arms, the hands, the elbows, and it's just something you develop over time. The ability to just focus all day long and just try to. And the other thing is not letting yourself get emotionally invested in any match. That takes a lot more energy than people realize.
Sure.
Somebody can be yelling and screaming at you, this, that, and the other. That doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? Because I'm just not letting myself get emotionally invested. I just, you know, you just set them up and run them and be done with it. And but yeah, you do, it is a I've reffed 8 hours straight before, no breaks, nothing, 8 hours straight. It's something you develop over time.
Well, Leonard, I'd really like to thank you for coming on the show. You've been a fantastic guest, and I think it's pretty clear if anybody's watched this and listened why you're the head ref. You work real hard even under the worst of conditions, and one thing that I really like about your stance on the sport is that if there is change, that you will come with it, and you will do your best to follow that change. And I think that's important for especially the head ref to be. But I think it's a good example to show, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I learned a lot, Leonard. It was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Anytime.
All right. Have a great night, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.